Let's talk some more Vikings here, gentlemen. I want to look ahead here, all right? This is a safe space on Thursdays to speculate far into the future, to go sort of out of the context of what's currently happening with the Vikings and project ahead maybe to March, around when the league year and free agency and contract decisions come up.
Mm-hmm.
I just want your thoughts on the state of the Vikings roster, who you are for sure keeping for next year and building around going forward, and who you might look at as dead contract weight and a chance to clear some room, get younger, more spry, etc. So I'd love to just play we do this 4 or 5 times a year. We just play the comb through the roster game, kind of go one by one, and we say, hey, this player, if you said goodbye, you could maybe save this much money. Is it worth it? All right.
Right.
Let's start with the number 2 wide receiver, Adam Thielen. So he, according to Spotrac, is next year. He has the same cap hit next year, just under $20 million, as Stephon Diggs. They're basically tied for the 13th highest wide receiver cap hit in the NFL in 2023. I'd say good for Buffalo. That's a great discount on Diggs. He might actually have a problem with that, and you might need to do something about that. If you were to say goodbye to Thielen, first of all, if you keep him, he's the second highest paid player on your team, one of the highest paid receivers. He has 13.5 in dead cap, 20 in overall cap. So you could say goodbye to him, eat 13.5 to your cap, which is not good, but you would clear $6.5 million to go do whatever you want with it.
Do we know how much dead cap money is on the Vikings books going into next year right now? Because I feel like there are still some contractual obligations from dead cap that are going to be.
It's only 3. I think.
Right
not
now.
too bad.
Yeah. They have
Not
a
too
bunch
bad.
for this season. It's pretty high for this. They have 26 right now in dead money that they have
for this year,
for the 2022 season.
So
yeah, for next year, it looks like it's Jesse Davis, Kellen Mond signing bonus, and then a couple other randos for their dead cap next year. But they do have some void money, don't they? I think they might have some void cap in there.
Probably, yes. So, all right. So on Thielen, what the scenario you just painted is not very attractive because of the fact that you would have a substantial amount of a dead cap hit as opposed to the savings. Here's the interesting thing. So I went on the Over the Cap website and did some crunching on this. There are 2 ways to cut a guy. One is you cut him in March, you immediately free up some space, which helps you in free agency, which is awesome. The other thing is, if you think that a guy is just basically cooked and not going to help you, you designate him as a post-June 1st cap cut. You can cut him now. It doesn't come off your books until post-June 1st. But if you do that with Adam, you basically flip the script of the money. The dead hit is then 6.5 mil. The savings are $13.4 million.
But does that then defeat the purpose? Because you'd miss out. Can you manipulate agreements in March to not? That's the thing. Like if you sign a guy in March, the cap kicks in, doesn't it?
You probably can't. But the point is, if you feel like he's cooked and you want him off your books at some point before, if you don't want him back, I don't think they do it. He's a local guy. He's back now because the Wilfs love him. Now, do I think that he should be? My problem with his contract being on my books as currently constituted is this: unless he is going to get healthy and have a rebirth physically, he is not he's going to be paid very much like a number 1 receiver, and he's really my number 3 receiver. I think he needs to be replaced, and I think it's very clear KJ Osborne is not that guy now, right? So it's not like a simple flop of Osborne and Thielen. So I guess I do have some issues with his contract fundamentally from a depth chart position. So I think that this is a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more in depth than just I can't sign a guy in March if I put a post June 1st designation on his cap. I think we are talking about, again, unless he is just beyond banged up and he's going to come back healthy, but he's not a young man and he's been hurt a lot. I think what we're talking about is, can I pay him what I'm supposed to towards the cap as a number 3?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, if there's going to be other ways to clear money for March too, and we'll get to some of those. So if you thought this just isn't working anymore, we love him as a franchise guy. He's definitely going to be a borderline Ring of Honor guy, if not a lock.
Not a borderline, not in this town.
He's a lock. He's a lock Ring of Honor. Yeah,
he's walking in.
But the guy's going to be 33 years old, and most receivers are kind of cooked by the time they're 32, 33 years old. Their speed's gone. So that's one to look at for sure. Interesting too, because if you do the post June 1st designation where they'll announce a guy's going to be cut, but the cap freedom won't come until after June 1st, it would free you up at that point because sometimes there's free agents that are decent but they aren't signing in March, and then they will hold out until right before training camp. So it would get that sort of second or third wave. Sometimes lingers into training camp, and it would give you some freedom then to go poach the depth defensive tackle or something. It would also give you freedom to move money around on restructures or what have you if you wanted to move money into 2023. So there is value in it. Okay, another guy here. Let's go to Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
So he is in line to be the 6th highest paid running back to the cap. $14 million cap hit next year. Aaron Jones, Zeke Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, and Nick Chubb currently slated to have higher cap hits than Dalvin Cook. According to Spotrac, he'd be the 6th highest paid Viking. If you said goodbye, he has $6.2 million in dead, $14.1 million in base, which means, and this is probably more complicated than I'm making it, but you would eat about $6 million, but you would save about $8 million if you said goodbye to Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm. So I believe that with all the players that we're going to discuss, I believe that the good thing is nobody has any guaranteed cash left. So you don't have, I think Cook's guarantees went through this season, if I'm not mistaken. Thielen's are going to be done in 2023. I think this one is a way more realistic cut for a multitude of reasons than Thielen is.
It's not really a trade. I mean, you would explore trade first, right? But
yeah. But I think that, and you might get a late pick, but the contract and look, I mean, I do think that one thing that Kwesi and this front office are going to believe in is positional value, which we've discussed before. Thielen's a little bit more difficult because it's wide receiver, and obviously those guys and their skill sets are valuable in what they can do now. I'm not saying that running backs aren't, but they are among the most, if not the most replaceable position in football. Mm-hmm. Cook is still good, but my goodness, there's been, I mean, the tread on the tire is wearing very, very thin.
Yeah. And there's no guaranteed base anymore, but his signing, right. This is where it gets really complicated, but his signing bonus was spread out through 4 years. So yes. That's where you would still, to the
that
cap.
Accelerates.
Yep. He's already gotten his signing bonus, but to the cap, you would still owe 6.2 in signing bonus, but you would owe no guaranteed base. So that's how you could get out from underneath.
Yep. And again, this might be more of this might be an easier one to do post June 1 than Thielen. If you did him post June 1, it's 3.1 in dead, a savings of 11. I could see them wanting out of this contract.
But at some point, you need post March 10th money. Pre-March 10th money, so
yes,
you can.
Yes, but this one wouldn't actually. I mean, this one would. So if the debt is 6.2 million and the savings before, so if this is done in March, if the debt is 6.2 and the savings is 7.9, that helps you some. But that's a lot of dead. It's very, very close.
Yeah.
But I do think that Cook is the most realistic if we're talking about Thielen and Cook. Just based on position, based on, I know people like him, but I don't think he's as popular. So if that is ever going to factor in, which it shouldn't, but it obviously does, especially when the Wilfs like Thielen so much. So I would think that this one has a decent shot of happening just based on wear and tear, the position. And I really think that this front office is going to try and go on the cheap at that position very soon.
And I almost want to back up a step here and just clarify. So the reason we're doing this is because next year the estimated salary cap is set to be about $222 million for your top 50. It's a top 51 player number, 222. The Vikings currently have $228 million in active contracts. So right now the Vikings, and then they also have $3 million in dead. So right now the Vikings have negative $9 million in cap space for next year, which means there's two ways for you to add players if you want to get better. You can get rid of current players that make money, or you can restructure current players with big contracts and push more money into the future.
Yes.
But into older years, which they've done a lot of the last 5 years or so and a lot of last year. At some point, you just have to get off the train with some of these veteran players and say goodbye if you want to clear space to bring younger, new players in.
And Thielen and Cook, I ain't touching their contracts to extend them. I'm not kicking that can down the road. They're too old. They've done a lot of good here, but it's basically done. So I'm making decisions on them that are based on jettisoning them or keeping them on their current contracts. So I'm done with this whole thing of, okay, in 2026, we'll get back to it. No.
Right. If you were to say goodbye to those guys early, like not post June 1st, but early before free agency in March, if you said goodbye to both those guys, and again, those are two of your like mainstay skill position players the last few years, you better have a damn good plan, wide receiver in the first round, whatever. That would get you $5 million under the cap, which isn't very much. So then I present to you one of the 10 highest paid linebackers in the NFL, Kendricks. So it's kind of crazy. Among inside linebacker is a position that has just eroded in terms of the money that they make. Mm-hmm. There's a few guys at the top, like Shaq Leonard and C.J. Mosley, both make $20 million in cap hit. There's only 11 linebackers that make more than $8 million in cap hit for next year. So it's not. Teams are kind of realizing, well, we should just stay young at this position and cheap, and then just go get another young and cheap guy. So Kendricks is the 10th highest paid inside linebacker, $11.4 million. If you said goodbye to him, you would only owe $2 million in dead. So you would save yourself roughly, call it $9.5 million to your salary cap.
If he and Hicks aren't gone, I'm going to be shocked.
Hicks, you would save $5 million. So you would save collectively $14 million by just, but you would also then need two inside linebackers in a 3-4 scheme. And you'd be losing two veteran presences. So that's the double-edged sword here.
Well, yeah, true. But at some point in time, guess what? You've got the latitude to reset some spots. Like, this is a weird year. The Vikings decided, right or wrong, and right now it looks right, but the Vikings decided to go back all in with a first-year GM and coach because they thought that they could win now. And you know what? They're 10-3. They've been proven right. Congratulations. I'm not criticizing that one bit. But at some point in time, you're going to have to come off that stance and start to retool and rebuild, which is why the draft becomes just so important. So I get what you're saying, Phil, and I don't disagree. And Kendricks is, again, probably a Ring of Honor guy, and Hicks has given you a veteran presence. All of that being said, that frees up a lot of space. The dead cap cash then is not that much. And I mean, I think those are two places where you 1000% have to say goodbye and look to upgrade. And the other thing is this, I think you get a little bit more wiggle room in this conversation because one, what's your defensive scheme going to be in 2023? And two, if it's going to be the same, we're proving right now, according to Ed, there's a lot of guys that aren't fits. So like this is, I think defense is where you can get away with largely saying, like, if you're going to stand behind the scheme pretty much is a good scheme, but the execution was off, where you have the ability to cut veterans and say, we are going to replace them with guys who in their minds fit the scheme and therefore have better execution. I think Hicks and Kendricks actually become not PR wise, but I think from a football standpoint, I think those two become fairly easy to cut ties with without it being this, oh my God, these guys were great last season.
And then you hope that Asamoah can play, and then you go find somebody else, right?
Yes.
But it definitely creates holes. Okay, I'm gonna give you a couple more here. We'll get to some old tweets exposed. Harrison Smith. So he signed a big extension. He is one of the highest paid safeties, the second highest paid safety in the NFL next year per the cap. He's also one of the oldest safeties in the league. So I don't, and he's still playing at a pretty high level. So I don't know that you're just gonna say goodbye. But he is the fourth highest paid player on the team to the cap, 19.2, dead cap 11.7, meaning, putting it in very simple terms, I guess here, but you'd save about $7.5 million if you said goodbye, but you would eat 11.7. So that's a tough one.
If you were completely convinced that Lewis Cine was going to be a stud, like he had come in, beat out Bynum, and does not get hurt playing special teams in London, I might be like, okay, I could possibly, although it's a big dead cap hit, but I could possibly see it. But you're not. I would be, among these names, Thielen, I'd be really surprised if he was not back. Harrison Smith, I'd be shocked now.
So you think Thielen and Harrison are back?
Yes.
I think they are back. Yeah.
Yes. Now, and I guess personally, if I was in Kwesi's shoes, I would be more apt to cut Thielen than Smith. Partially because I don't know my safeties now. Like, is Cine going to come back? If Cine does come back, which I think he's fine, I think he will, but can he play? Like, we don't know that yet. He didn't beat out Bynum in training camp.
Who has a better chance next year to be one of the better players at their position? Adam Thielen or Harrison Smith? It's Harrison Smith.
Harrison Smith.
Totally.
Not even close,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I love me some Thielen, and then one more for you here. Zadarius Smith, who, and now we'll see how he plays the last month here now that he's back healthy again, but he would be the fifth highest paid player on your team at $15.6 million, but the dead cap is only 3.3, meaning if you did say goodbye to Zadarius, you could save $12 million to the cap. But boy, if he can stay healthy for even 3/4 of the season, you need anyone that you can get to put pressure on quarterbacks. And the Vikings don't have many guys. They basically have two. So it's a no-brainer for me. I'm probably actually extending Zadarius Smith, to be honest with you. I know he's not like 25 years old anymore, but he's a really good player. He's been your best pressure player on defense this season, and I think he has another year or two left. So it'd have to be probably a trade to land me some nice, like a second-round pick or something. I wouldn't just get rid of him by any means.
If you're going to keep the scheme in place, he fits it.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of guys that I think that you can make a very solid case don't fit this scheme. And Smith played in it and fits it. So I think that lends credence to your point, which is, would you cut a guy who actually fits and knows what you're trying to accomplish? The real discussion point is this: Hunter.
So his contract's weird.
Yeah.
Help me with this one. So this is what doesn't make any sense to me. Because they've been like, they put void years on the end of his contract for 2024-25. So his cap hit next year would be $13 million. But then there's like what's called a restructure. There's like a restructure column here, a restructure bonus.
Yes.
Of $7.6 million. So
yes,
he has, according to Spotrac, he actually has $30 million in dead cap this year. And then next year it goes down to he has $19 million in dead cap next year on a $13 million cap hit. So you would actually you'd be paying him more to go away.
Yeah. What I'm curious about with him is if he indeed has been playing healthy, is he going to want to stay? Like, if this system really fits him as poorly as it appears it does, and look, I'm shocked by that. I thought he'd be great, and he has not been. But if he is just a 4-3, hand in the ground, mud on the fingers, one after the quarterback, and I mean, he has 7 sacks, but I think he has like 1 sack in the last 4 games. Okay, so I guess my question from his standpoint and his representatives is, does he want it to try to get out to go play in a scheme that fits him? Because like I have never gone through a season not seeing him, and I know the PFF grades are still favorable, but think about the amount of times he doesn't flash now.
Agreed.
It's
Agreed.
bizarre.
He's not wreaking havoc as much as he used to. I would say Judd's been wreaking havoc with all the spiral light candles that keep showing up at his door here. You guys are all in. Look at this. Look at this.
Don is all in every day. And you know what? I don't have one problem with this. There's a knock on the door, guy outside dropping off another package of spiral light candles. Why? Because they are fantastic. They make your house smell great. In fact, you're looking at one right now that is actually Judd's Purple Positivity candle that you can light for a Vikings game. If things are going well, it's a celebratory candle. If they're not, it calms you. And as you can see, these candles are super cool. First of all, they smell great. But second of all, they burn spirally pretty quickly. And then at the end there, that's the second wick that burns for a long time. These candles, they come in a variety of different candles. Spirallightcandles.com. They are a fantastic gift. Wife, girlfriend, mom, I don't care. Anyone who likes candles will love these. Again, there is a big variety, and there are specials right now that you can find. Spirallightcandles.com. I wasn't a candle guy until I discovered them, and now Dawn and I love them. You and your wife or girlfriend will too.
Big candle people here in the Mackey household. Federated Insurance been helping us grow and power our business for the last few years here at Score North, and they provide a great guiding hand for countless businesses inside and outside the state of Minnesota. Their history goes back to 1904, and it's rich with all sorts of smart and I would say people with foresight that can help you navigate the choppy waters potentially of business. Find out the different resources, tools, and people that Federated can bring to your business at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Let's fly through some old tweets here or some old takes, Declan. He always looks to make us feel terrible about ourselves every Thursday on the show.
All right, let's go down a Bill Musgrave old tweets exposed rant here. Here's Judd from a preseason football game, August 27th, 2011. First quarter over at the Dome. Vikings lead 7-3. And if you're a Vikings fan, you have to like what Musgrave is doing right now.
Oh, my God.
So the Vikings scored a touchdown, and Judd loves what Mussy is doing.
I'm so in the lead. I beat that.
This is a preseason game. This is like the third preseason game, and Judd loves what he's seeing probably from
Billy
Donovan
Musgrave.
McNabb. Yes. That's going to be tough to beat, but batter up. Let's go.
All right, Phil's isn't that incriminating, but I still like to point it out. We all rag on Bill Musgrave, but coordinators are quote-unquote middle managers in a business sense. And middle managers reflect their leader's head coach, which would be Leslie Frazier at this point.
Leslie Frazier.
I got the lead.
So I'm ripping Leslie Frazier. I feel good I think this tweet, I'm sort of defending Billy a little bit, but yeah, Leslie was not the greatest head coach. Although I would like to see him get a second chance.
Here,
he's had some success.
I'm going to do the rest of the segment like this.
Okay.
There he is. Your little Musgrave play chart.
My play card. Okay.
On Christmas Eve 2011, the crazy thing is Joe Webb fits Bill Musgrave's hybrid style offense better. The Christian Ponder, that was supposed to be then, and I put the. But crazy thing is Musgrave, the offense works better for Joe Webb and not Christian Ponder.
I love how you're tweeting this on Christmas Eve. You're probably a few cocktails in with the family here.
Definitely.
The hybrid. What is the hybrid? Musgrave's hybrid offense.
I guess I was, just a great football savant, and I noticed it was a hybrid offense.
The infamous Musgrave hybrid offense.
When was the Joe Webb Bill Musgrave Green Bay game? Game.
January of 2013.
Okay.
So this would have been, you were looking way out.
I was ahead of it, man.
Here.
I was way ahead of it.
I win.
Year and change ahead.
I
win. Declan's is second. Phil just a distant third. But
Judd salivating during a preseason game over the Bill Musgrave offensive experience.
You have to like what you're seeing.
Well, Mussy.
Or
all right,
not.
That's your Mackey and Judd fix for the day here. Feedback Friday tomorrow. We're celebrating Declan's birthday today. He's going to, if you see birthday. Declan just passed out in a booth at Manny's tonight.
That'd be me.
That's him celebrating.
Coma.
So, yeah, if you guys have any advice on what Declan should get at Manny's or what he should do now that he has left his 20s He'll take any and all advice from you. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow, and then over on Purple Daily as well.